Hi, I'm Leigh Morris and I'm the head of instructional design and learning technologies at a company called Roffey Park. I've had a long journey to get here. I used to be a high school teacher and I got quite interested in the use of technology in the classroom. So ended up spending a lot of time trying to integrate it as much as possible, but then started shifting more into working with my colleagues to help them, which led to a change to actually leaving teacher and going into teacher professional development, through to university teacher development, to pre-service teacher development, and now I've entered the corporate space where I purely actually work in learning design. So we now work at a consultancy and we design and put together the learning interventions for the private and public sector. So what will happen is an outside company will come to us and they very often are struggling with a problem within the company. So it could be retention of staff, it could be financial, it could be they would like to help promote more people internally. And our consultants, who I suppose you could refer to as the subject matter experts, they'll work with the organization, do a lot of insights gathering and analysis, and look at solutions that could help with a specific problem. So for example, they want to, a company saying that they'd like to promote more internally and they don't want to hire externally for a position, then what we would do would be targeted training with the managers and people looking to move into manager positions within the company. So we'd identify and highlight areas of weakness within those managers, areas that they need to improve, and then I would work with the subject matter experts to come up with the learning intervention program that would run through the company. So we would take a look at, as you do normally with your analysis part, what are the aims, the outcomes, the objectives, and then we would put together the course, whether it's a one-day workshop or running for 8 or 9 months, we'll put that course together. And I don't get involved with any of the actual delivering of the program, so it's purely in the behind the scenes, but we'll work a lot with that subject matter expert and the company to make sure that their goals are being met and their objectives are being met. I recently saw a new AI tool for use at university that I think is incredibly clever, and we're looking at implementing it into ours. So one of the big problems that universities are having around the world is how can they stop students from submitting essays using AI? It's the age-old question. As an educator, your first answer is you should probably make better assignments. And for the first time, I'm starting to see those come out utilizing AI. So one of my favorite ones that I've seen is the actual assignment uses an AI tool where you ask it to write your essay or write your abstract. You put your prompt in, and then the AI spits it out for you. So you now have your 2,000-word essay based around this. But then what it's grading on, so you now have a space where you make your editorial changes and you reason as to why you've made those changes. And that is the part of the assignment that is submitted in and gets marked. So what it's doing is, fine, your student isn't writing their essay, but they're demonstrating their knowledge and ability to write the essay by making smart and choiceful editing changes. And this tool will track each change that you do, and it looks at how different the changes are, if you've made, how many you've made, how much effort has gone into them. So, you know, it can't just be Leigh made 20 changes of spelling. It's whether it's editing changes, word changes, argument changes, structure changes, all of those. And you can program it in the back end to look at the type of changes that you want to see. And I really feel that that is a smart use of AI in the education space, because instead of trying to find ways to block it, this one is specifically working with it and making changes to assignments. So what I find really interesting about the argument about whether or not you need the experience in order to be the editor is that that question doesn't come up when I refer to using the AI to do my back-end design and then making my tweaks and changes. And we will be, in 5 years from now, if not even less, our learning designers will not be designing from scratch. There's no reason for that. And is that a problem? And if it isn't a problem there, why do we place so much of it being a problem for students at university levels as well? So one of the things that can mitigate that is to teach them what appropriate essay structures are. So for example, the assumption would be that the professor is able to write an exceptional essay that would be published. So the essay goes out, and then you are graded on your ability to make it resemble that as much as possible, teaching through modeling, I suppose. But it's an interesting question because, to be honest with you, we all know it, there's going to be very little new writing happening within schools and universities and even marketing companies in the years to come. I mean, why would you if you can use AI to come up with your pieces? To be 100% honest with you, I'm not massively feeling the impact as of yet. And I don't know if that is the space that I'm in, or if it's the clients that we work with, or if it's just that very often in corporate spaces things tend to move quite slowly and people can be very mistrusting of new things. I'm definitely seeing it slowly starting to move in, and you can see new programs coming out, you can see new tools that you can use that offer great affordances for it. But I wouldn't say that it's been a dramatic shift and an upend within my side of the industry quite yet. I am still waiting for that to happen. At my company, we run everything through a learning experience platform. And as a designer, you spend a lot of time in the back end of this LXP it's not coding or anything like that, but you have to conceptually imagine and plan out what each page is going to look like, what the workspace will look like as a whole, and add all your content in. And one of the things that the platform that we are using has started doing is integrating regenerative AI into the actual design. So at the moment now they're launching their new UX, and I can add my page and then I can use AI to ask it to design it for me. So I can say, for example, I would like to have a page with 3 different areas for participants to put their ideas in and have those ideas be able to move into a single bucket and then space for a video to play afterwards. And you can basically detail it out in text, and then when you hit enter, it will design the layout for you, and then you can make tweaks and changes to it, which as a learning designer has given me a lot of time back. So I no longer have to spend hours in the back end of the actual design. I can easily type out what I want. It will generate it for me, and then I can make the changes that I need from there. And for me personally, I found that a little bit of a game changer. So I thought it was good. It needed some tweaks because the language that it used didn't quite hit the mark, and that's one of the things that I think is quite interesting. So ChatGPT's, as it stands right now, its language isn't always accessible to everybody, and it doesn't always know, so it doesn't understand my company's brand and what my company's voice is. And if I have to sit there and explain to it what the voice is, I may as well have written the piece. So what I got was a very, I suppose cold isn't quite the word, but it was a very utilitarian response and explanation. So I went in and overlaid the language that we would have within my organization, the voice of the organization, made it a little more accessible. And my marketing department loved it. I like to use ChatGPT and others to write case studies and scenarios for the courses that I'm on. We utilize those quite a lot on our programs to help people practice the skills and use what they're learning, and they can be extremely time consuming to write. And it also takes a level of language too, and not all of us have the capacity to write a really great story. So I found that ChatGPT can actually push out some really good ones for you. So I recently needed to run a 1-hour webinar at my organization looking at effective learning design. The idea was it was a free webinar that people could join and get an understanding of how we go about putting a program together. So as a learning designer, I know what it is that goes about putting a program together, but I was extremely busy and I just did not have the headspace to sit down for a day mapping it out. So I explained to ChatGPT, I had 60 minutes. I wanted the program to be around effective learning design. And then I gave it 5 areas that I wanted to talk about. And I asked it to storyboard this out with objectives for each section. So first run, it gave me a breakdown little storyboard. So it would say 5 to 10 minutes for introductions, and then 15 minutes on analysis, 15 minutes on etc. And it mapped it out and it gave me the objectives for each section. So then what I was able to do is read through that and then ask it to make some changes. So I would say to it, I feel that it's going a little too deeply into this area, so please could you reduce this and maybe add a little more into the last one, and it would do another run at it. Then what I asked it to do was to map that out a little bit further. What type of things could I talk about for each one? So give me some ideas of prompts that I could talk about. So it took its beginning design and then mapped that out a little bit more. I could make changes on that as well, and then I asked it to storyboard it out and give me discussion topics for each of the areas as well. And so by the time it came to it, if I'd had a different one, I could have then asked it to make the slide deck for me, which would have been very, very nice. But what would have essentially been a good day's worth of work to put it together, spent about 2 hours in total mapping it out with ChatGPT, which was very nice. And it felt a little bit like you could bounce ideas off of it as well. So you could ask it for some ideas and then say, I don't like these, do you have any others? And then weigh them up against each other, which was quite nice. So it was almost like working with somebody, but not quite. So on our LXP, we also have built-in AI, which helps us with filtering through themes and ideas that are coming up with participants. So when a live online session is running, we have lots of spaces for participants to write notes in, ideas. You might have a prompt question and they can place everything down there. Then there's an AI overlay that can come up with the different themes that are appearing. It can divide it, so it can take each of the comments and put them into different buckets depending on what the theme is, as the themes are as well. It also can help you with sense analysis, so you can get visuals coming out letting you know about the positive and negative comments and comments that are neutral and things. Then you got the most basic form of your word cloud coming in as well, which is still useful, if not a little bit basic. And then we are also using it to help come up with summaries of everything that's been spoken about. So if participants go into their breakout rooms and they're plugging their ideas into the platform, we can get a written summary, 1 paragraph from the AI giving us a breakdown about what happened in each room and what conversations were going on. Well, another really great thing that we're using it for is language as well. So it's still quite, I mean, I wouldn't say it's basic because it's getting better and better all the time. We've been testing it quite a bit with colleagues, and there are only some language errors, and sometimes if the words are a little bit too in a direction of a specific work function, it gets a little bit confused. But we're able to now use language AI so that participants can type to one another in their home language, and then the other participant will see it in their home language. And it's the same with content as well. So instead of putting a slide deck up, if you build it straight into the LXP, so you put your 4 points on the page, then Shonali, you might see it in German, and I might see it in Afrikaans, and somebody else might see it in French, but it was written in English by the person, and it gets translated across what everybody has selected as their language in the LXP. So what it's doing is it's making it a lot more accessible. So in a live session, you might be running it in English, but you have multiple people from different countries who are trying as hard as possible in real time to keep up with English. And then they can visualize things in their home language. So it's helping a lot with accessibility and belonging. So successful languages are still your European languages and Chinese, and quite a bit going into the Middle East now with Arabic. African languages are still falling behind, and I'm going to take a little guess that it is that we don't have a lot of literature up on the internet in many African languages. So that is something that I think as AI goes forward and forward, we need to make sure it's accessible for all languages around the world. But starting small within a year, that's not bad. It's easy to say that what AI is fed is what it produces, and that's why we end up with so much AI content that you can have in European languages and most Western languages, but we're lacking on the African language side of things. And the question I have here is, who's responsible for that? Are we ultimately at fault because we're not sending enough languages through? Can we blame corporates? Can we blame Google? Can we blame Microsoft because they're not putting as much effort into African languages as they are Western languages? The question is, for me, who's at fault? So are our youth at university making sure that they feed as much of their home languages into AI platforms as possible up on the internet? Writing papers in your own home language will help that as well. So how can we as a society make sure that other languages that aren't seen as up there as Western languages are, how can we make sure that they get treated the same way and have the same accessibility? If you don't feed the language into the AI platform, then you're going to have an entire community of people who are being left out of something that's game-changing. But if you do feed it in, are you lessening the culture and making changes and shifts to the culture? And at what point do we stop? I mean, I cannot imagine. So we have, where I work, we also have a university side of things. We do an MSc in organizational design, and it's an online one. So we have participants coming from all over the world. We have some people in America who get up very early in the morning to attend lectures, but we actually have quite a few people coming from African countries. And once this language aspect gets better and better, and at the moment they're also looking at how live translations for voices can happen. If you are not feeding the AI with all languages, you're going to create a situation where people are being left out of it. So if you're sitting in a lecture and your lecturer is now happens to be French and they're speaking in English, heavily accented English, and you are from South Africa and Xhosa is your home language, and everybody else is able to hear that lecturer in their home language, but you cannot because your language was left out of the AI, how is that going to help people moving forward? I don't know if they're large language models, but what I am seeing more and more is customization of AI in video tools, specifically aimed at learning and development. So they're pushing it directly at organizations and the learning design teams within the organizations, because One of the more expensive, harder things to do is video production. And it's very, very time consuming. You need to find people to interview. You need to get graphics, music, all of these things that take a lot of time. And they're using AI so that you can create videos based off of scripts that you write. So if I wanted a short 2-minute video about a certain topic, I could tell I suppose it is a large language model. I could tell the large language model what it is that I want to have, how long I want to have it, and within a few minutes it can produce a video for me around that, utilizing the AI. And even within my own organization, I'm finding that idea of that incredibly useful, because we struggle a lot with videos on our budgets. So having access to something like that would be really good, I think, within the learning and development space. I suppose you could have the person send you the text answering the questions that you're asking for, and it could then create a video based around that. I think what it does is it helps with access to people and permissions and visuals and graphics within videos. So instead of needing to come up with a graphic, a model, try find things within the database that you can use in Shutterstock with all your images, this calibrated system is going to do that for you, and it's going to make sure that everything has permission to be used, everything is accessible, all of that. I don't think that it's meant to replace the human knowledge. It's more meant to help with things like, on a short course, if you need a video explaining a model or a concept, you can quickly do that, as opposed to needing to find somebody to record and then edit the video, and hours that are spent doing for something that's only 2-3 minutes can be done by this platform, which I think is a good use of time in certain areas. One of my biggest concerns of the use of AI in learning design is quality assurance and checks, because there's access to a lot of information coming from all over, but who is checking and who knows that that information is correct and that it's actually what you want to show, what you want to talk about. And often your learning designers are not subject matter experts, so if they're utilizing AI to come up with content, I think that there are a lot of problems that could happen there. You could have a model being used and pulled in that's been debunked, and the target market that you're going for knows this, but your learning designer doesn't, because this is not their subject specialist area. And I think that sometimes our desire to take shortcuts can be a little detrimental to us. So it's one of the things that I don't support right now until we look at that quality assurance and checks, is utilizing AI for creating content on my programs. What I'm seeing a lot in education, it's not at university level, but at school level, is programs using large language models that can spit out all worksheets, tests, study notes, content, everything for students. So these companies are promising that if the school purchases this, your teacher who is teaching The Great Gatsby can say, I want a terms teaching pack for The Great Gatsby, and literally within minutes, it will give you everything for that. And the idea here is that the teacher now can focus on the child, and you can focus on classroom management and extending the children. But my big concern is who is moderating that? Where is this content coming from? Where has the large language model found it? Is this all seeing it from one side? Is it slanted in a certain direction? And who's actually quality checking that? So who's assessing it? Or are we just blindly handing it out to kids because we have a lot of trust in AI and we think, well, because it's got access to everything, it must know what's best, forgetting that there are always organizations, people, content things in the back end that are pushing other things forward. If I had to give a learning designer advice on what to get good at now when it comes to what could be possibly changing in the future, it would be learning how to ask questions and how to spend the majority of their time in the analysis stage of learning design. Because we are going to reach a point where platforms will be able to come up with a structure of a design, can map out your objectives, your outcomes, can base those all off from the goal that you feed in it. It can give you advice on the best activities to use. There are programs coming out which then can create those activities for you, can put it in. We're hearing how it can get built into the LXP quite easily. But what's going to be important for me is that human touch right at the start, and understanding the problem as a whole is going to become much more important than your skills at pedagogy and understanding the best style and activity to put together. It's going to be, how do you ask the right questions? Are you really at the root of the problem? Who are you working with, and what are you utilizing from them? How are you shifting their ideas, their thoughts here, and how does that play into the program, and then how are you able to make those changes based off of it, and kind of bringing that analysis into each stage of the process. So making sure that when you're in the design stage with your AI, that you're again doing a lot of analysis around that and going back to the start again as you go into your development, that you're back there and you're constantly doing these analysis loops onto it that feed back into it, as opposed to moving through the stages as we would have previously.